and welcome to another episode of PDA Dads UK. Before we go on, I want you to stop this, go and hit like, go hit subscribe and ring the bell so that you know when I've got new content coming up. Got lots of really cool and interesting stuff coming up, this week being no exception. In this episode, I'm looking to do something a bit different, and I've been trying to explain autism to people in a lot of different ways. And it occurred to me I could combine two of my great loves. That's my passion for autism and autism advocacy, but also my passion for music, and particularly the guitar. If you've seen my early episodes or anything on the Grumpy Days, you see I've always got a guitar hanging up. This guitar, in fact, hanging up in the background. It's one of my true loves of my life. And I wanted to explain autism by using my guitar. There's me two guitars I'm using. This one is my electric guitar. It is a Paul Reed Smith PRS, Custom 24. This is an electric guitar. It's solid wood, it's made of swamp ash. It's got a maple top here, which is very beautifully decorated, and so it gets that lovely effect on it, called quilting. It's just a beautiful guitar. I love it, it feels great, and my passion for guitar is just part of me, and I love music. I love guitar in particular. This is an electric guitar, and it's got a certain purpose. And that purpose is usually with more rock stuff, but it can be used for lighter stuff as well. But in this example, I'm going to be using the real sort of rock side of things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this guitar. I'm going to play just a couple of pieces of music, and then I'm going to compare them to my other guitar. So this is my acoustic guitar. As you can see, it's different from my electric guitar, but yet it is basically the same thing. They're made of wood, both of them. They both have 6 strings, they both have frets. They're both tuned the same way. They both play the same way. But the effect you get from the two different guitars using different distortions, different effects, is dramatic. Allow me to explain. So I'm going to start with my electric. Now this, as I say, it's very, very similar in so many ways to my acoustic guitar. It also has 6 strings. It also has 6 tuning pegs. It is also made of wood. It also has frets, and it's also tuned to a drop D tuning. The difference is that they have dramatically different effects when you start to play them. So allow me to show you. I'm going to play, this is actually a little piece by Joe Satriani. It's just the intro bit to it, which is called Always With Me, Always With You. And just playing this little intro, you'll see the difference between playing this and playing my acoustic, and the difference that it has in its tone. So now I'm going to play that same piece of music, but I'm going to play it using my acoustic. I want you to listen to the difference. There's a number of differences. Play it first, and then I'm going to explain. So, having played that, what did you notice? One of the things is that on my electric, it had what's called sustain. I could hold the note and it would last for a long time. When I play a note on my acoustic guitar, it has some sustain, but it dies off fairly quickly. With my electric guitar, I can hold that note and it lasts for quite some time. And if you listen to the end of that piece of music I played, I was able to hold that note and vibrato it, just so it has that effect. And that's something that only my electric can do, because that's the way it's built. It has the pickups, and I'll explain that. So this has pickups as well. There's a pickup across the face of this here, and there's a pickup built into here. And they will pick up the vibrations and the tone of the guitar and transfer it to my guitar amp. So with this, they're called ceramic pickups. So that means you get a more natural woody tone. So you get the acoustic tone, if you like, of the guitar. And that's what comes through. Now on my electric, it's different. So you can see that these are the pickups, and they're actually called humbuckers. And again, for electric guitars, you can get all kinds of different pickups for the guitar. These are humbuckers, which means they have these two parts to them, and that actually cancels out the hum that you sometimes get with guitars. If you look at things like Fender Stratocasters and stuff like that, they usually come with a single coil or a series of single coils, which is just one of these strips. So they get more buzz, but they have a different tone to them. So again, you get these subtle variations. So there's a big difference between the two guitars, but they're essentially the same thing. They're both guitars. They both play the same way. They both use the same principles. I play the same notes. My fingers go in the same places, but the result is very different. The result has an entirely different effect, and you get very different type of things. I can get a much chunkier sound using this. So I'm going to play another piece of music now. This is one that I actually wrote, and I'm a bit rusty on it, so I apologise if it sounds a bit dodgy, but basically what this is a riff. So it has this heavy riff, and then it follows with this little instrumental piece that follows it, where it's using using a few strings, but using just one of the strings to change the effect of the note. I'm going to play that on my electric first, then I'm going to play it on the acoustic with both parts, and then we're going to discuss the difference. So having played that now and listened to them both together, what you'll notice is something quite unique. Really, the chunky part, that heavy rhythm at the beginning, works much better on the electric guitar. It has a much chunkier sound, and it sounds more like what you'd expect that kind of riff to sound like. However, when I moved to the single note things, the placements down here, it didn't work as well. The distortion was too much and it sounded washed out. It didn't have the clarity of tone. When I played that on my acoustic, it sounded much better. Well, to me anyway, it sounds much better. It has more clarity, and the way the acoustic brings out those notes and the brightness is much different. So there's two very different approaches to the same piece of music. In both cases here, we've used the same piece of music, we've used the same tuning on the guitars. All we've done is change the guitar. And they've had very, very different effects on how we receive the music that's played through them. Now, this to me is a really good parallel for the autistic brain. So you hear a thing, we've said it on this channel a lot, you hear it a lot, on my group on Facebook, on many of these things. You'll hear it said that autism isn't a disability, it's a different ability. And we've said that before, that the autistic brain is just different. It processes things in a different way. Now, that doesn't mean it's broken. For something to be broken, it doesn't work. And the autistic brain works fine. It just works differently. It comes at things from a different perspective. And on my other channel with the Grumpy Dads, we've interviewed some comedians, we've interviewed a lot of different people. And for the comedians, the one thing that they have in common is that they have this really unique way of looking at the world from a different perspective. And it's something I can't look at. And when they say it, it's like, oh, I'd never noticed it that way. And it makes me laugh. It's funny because it's true. However, it's a way I'd never perceived it before. And that's what we get to. So these two guitars, whilst being ultimately the same thing, they're both a guitar. They're both tuned the same way. They both make the same music. The way they express that music is very different, and the way they process the input is very different. And so you get a different output. And that's what autism is. It's taking that similar input, processing it in a different way, and you get a different output. So the same piece of music can go in, but it comes out in a very different way. And we need to understand that better. The best way I can understand my daughter in many ways is to be able to sit back and think, how is she processing this? What is it like for her? And if you've got something like sensory processing disorder, so she finds underwear extremely uncomfortable. It's horrendous for her and it can actually be physically painful. That's the way her body processes that input. And so the output is different. In the same way, she can play games that I couldn't hope to play because her input, even though it's the same information going in from the game, is a very different output. And she can focus on that for hours and hours and hours and really get something out of it. Whereas I'll get fed up after 20 minutes of being shot by somebody and just give up altogether. It doesn't work for me in the same way. My daughter is very adept at that, where I'm not, and that's just a difference in the way her brain processes the information, the same information, and is able to respond to it. So that is why I wanted to use this as an example of the differences between different people. And it doesn't really restrict itself to autism, it doesn't restrict itself to neurodiversity. Every person on this planet is different in one way or another, and they'll express themselves in different ways. That doesn't mean people need fixing or need changing. It means that we need to change our appreciation for what's coming out. And I find that a really apt metaphor for the life of, parenting my autistic daughter and for her being autistic and the way that she's able to then express herself. And if I can bring this understanding to her that you're just processing it differently, so how can we use that constructively? Then I'm going to help her a lot more on the path to success in her life. That's all I really wanted to say. I thought it was a really nice app thing. It was one of those things that comes to you when you're lying in bed at night, and I thought I've got to do that. And any excuse to pull out my guitar, really. Please do like this, please do subscribe. I'd love to hear in the comments if you've got any metaphors or anything like that that you find for your life, whether you're autistic, whether you're neurotypical, neurodiverse, whatever the case may be. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Please like this, please subscribe and ring that bell, and I will see you again on the next episode.